Betrayal isn't just a wound. It's a psychological implosion, something that rips through the fabric of who you thought you were and who you believed others to be. It's not the event that haunts you the most. It's what it means. Because when someone betrays you, especially someone close, it doesn't just hurt, it reframes reality. Suddenly, trust feels naive, closeness feels dangerous, and you begin to wonder if you were ever truly safe. You go quiet, not out of peace, but self-preservation. You analyze every word you spoke, every sign you missed, until you start to blame yourself for letting them in at all. You didn't just lose someone, you lost a version of yourself. The one who still believed love meant protection. The one who still thought loyalty was mutual. And here's the hardest part to admit. The betrayal didn't only come from them. A part of it came from you. The part of you that refused to see what was really happening. The part that silenced its own instincts to avoid conflict. The part that stayed silent when something inside you was screaming. But this pain, as raw as it is, carries something sacred. A key. Because if you can stay with it long enough, if you can resist the temptation to numb it, deny it, run from it, this devastation can become your doorway to something unbreakable. Viktor Frankl, a man who lost everything, his wife, his parents, his freedom, found something in the middle of his own collapse that most of us spend a lifetime avoiding. Meaning. Not the fake kind, not the cliché, motivational poster kind, but the kind forged in the fire of despair, the kind that doesn't just help you survive the pain, it turns the pain into your teacher. This is not a video about how to move on, it's about how to rebuild, from the rubble, from the wreckage, from the silence left behind after someone you trusted shattered everything. And that journey, as Frankl discovered in the camps, doesn't begin with revenge, or forgetting, or pretending it didn't matter. It begins with a single terrifying question. Who am I now that I've lost everything? Because in that question is the seed of your transformation. Before continuing with the video, subscribe to the E channel so you don't miss more videos like this when they are released. Viktor Frankl stood in Auschwitz, not as a psychiatrist, not as a husband, not even as a man with a name, just a number, just another hollow body in a system designed to erase everything human. And yet, what he discovered in that living hell was not just survival, it was clarity. When everything is taken from you, your family, your dignity, your future, you are left with only one question: what cannot be taken from me? That question is the birthplace of real strength. Most people, when they're betrayed, they try to rebuild from the outside in. They look for new people, new routines, new distractions, and that might work for a while. But it's surface level. Frankl's insight was different. He realized that suffering strips you down to your essence, and if you don't find something inside that gives the pain meaning, the pain will break you, not just once, but again and again, in new disguises, in new people, in new patterns. The betrayals is never just about them, it's a mirror, a confrontation, a brutal revelation of where you've handed away your power. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. It's not your fault you were betrayed, but it is your responsibility to decide what that betrayal will mean to you. Frankl said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And this is where most people miss the deeper lesson. They think healing is about trusting again, opening up again, finding someone new. But true healing is something else. It's standing inside the ruins, with no guarantee of justice, no promise, of closure, and saying, I will not let this turn me into someone I am not. That is the essence of Frankl's message, and it's the most defiant act you can commit after betrayal, to refuse to become bitter, to refuse to be reduced, to rebuild not as a reaction, but as a decision. Because the most dangerous thing about betrayal isn't that it hurts, it's that it tempts you to become unrecognizable to yourself. But the soul, your soul, was made for moments like this, not for perfection, not for comfort, but for this raw ground zero kind of becoming. And if you're willing to stay here, if you're willing to feel everything without running, the next version of you, It won't just be stronger, it'll be sovereign. One of the things no one warns you about is that betrayal doesn't just hurt you emotionally. It disorients you existentially, because you weren't just betrayed by a person. You were betrayed by a story. The story you built about them. The story you told yourself about what love means. The story of who you are when you're with them. And when that story shatters, something terrifying happens. You lose your reflection. You look in the mirror, and you don't see someone angry, or grieving, or heartbroken. You see someone you don't even recognize, a shell, a question mark. You start asking things like, was any of it real? Am I the fool? Did I ever actually matter, or was I just convenient? These aren't surface-level doubts. They are psychic earthquakes. They shake the foundations of identity, because betrayal isn't just the loss of them, it's the loss of who you thought you were when you were with them. This is where most people get stuck. They try to rebuild on top of the rubble without clearing the wreckage. They rush to forgive, rush to forget, rush to find someone new, but all that does is bury the wound deeper. Viktor Frankl's insight was surgical. He taught that trauma is not defined by what happens, but by the meaning we assign to what happens. So if betrayal tells you, I wasn't enough, I was stupid, I was used, you don't heal, you fracture. But if betrayal becomes the moment you say, I refuse to let this define me, then everything changes. Frankl didn't escape his suffering by denying it. He transcended it by owning it. He didn't say, this shouldn't have happened. He asked, given that it has happened, what will I do now? That question is your bridge, not to the past, but to the version of yourself that betrayal can no longer touch. And here's the truth. Before betrayal, you were someone who believed love meant safety. That goodness would protect you. That loyalty, guaranteed loyalty. But now you have a chance to become something far rarer, someone whose strength doesn't come from innocence, but from integration. Someone who has seen the darkness and still chooses to create light. That's the turning point. Not forgetting the pain, but forging yourself through it. Because the self you lost was never the whole you. It was the part that needed to break, so something real could be born in its place. We're often told that in dark moments what we need most is hope. But Viktor Frankl saw something different, something deeper, something far more dangerous and far more liberating. He discovered that in the face of extreme suffering, hope, without responsibility, collapses, because hope says, maybe something out there will save me. But responsibility says, no one is coming and I will rise anyway. That shift changes everything. After betrayal, most people wait. They wait for the apology, wait for karma, wait for closure that never comes, and in that waiting, they wither. Because the moment you hand your healing to the person who hurt you, you lose twice. Frankl refused to let his captors define him. Even when they took everything, his name, his dignity, his freedom, he clung to one thing, the freedom to choose his response. Not because it was easy, not because it erased the pain, but because it was the only way to stay human. He wrote, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That is the core of rebuilding after betrayal. Not waiting for the other person to see your worth, but choosing to see it yourself, even when every voice inside you says you're broken. Because real responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for what happened. It means refusing to be reduced by it, and that's the paradox. You don't reclaim your power by getting even. You reclaim it by refusing to collapse, by waking up day after day, not to punish them, but to rebuild you. Slowly, quietly, privately, with no audience, no applause, just that one sacred decision. I will not let this turn me into someone I'm not. That is strength the world can't touch. And it's not just philosophical. Responsibility rewires your mind. It gives structure to chaos. It replaces helplessness with agency. You start asking different questions. Not, why did they do this to me? But, who do I now have the chance to become? Because here's the truth. You're not healing to become who you were. That version of you didn't see the red flags. That version of you abandoned your instincts to preserve the relationship. That version of you tolerated too much because you hoped too much. You're healing to become someone new, someone whose value isn't borrowed, whose identity isn't built in someone else's reflection, someone whose peace is no longer negotiable. Frankl's lesson was brutal, but clear. Suffering doesn't get to define you, only you do. No one really talks about this, but after betrayal, you don't just grieve the person who hurt you. You grieve the version of you that died in the process, the one who believed, the one who stayed, the one who tried. Even when the signs were loud, even when your intuition whispered, leave. This grief is invisible, unspoken, but it's there, heavy, slow, aching behind your ribs. It shows up in silence. In the middle of a normal day, in the way you flinch at kindness, in the way your body tightens when someone says, you're too sensitive. It's the mourning of an identity that felt secure, an innocence that's now gone. And the hardest part, no one sees this grief, because on the outside you might look functional, but inside, you're quietly attending your own funeral. The death of the version of yourself that kept believing you could fix everything if you just loved harder. Frankl too faced this kind of silent loss. He watched friends die, family vanish, dreams disintegrate into smoke. And yet, what broke him open wasn't the brutality of loss itself. It was the realization that loss always carries a choice, to let your grief become a grave or to let it become a gateway. He wrote, in some ways, suffering ceases. To be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. But meaning doesn't come quickly. It comes after the breakdown, after the numbness, after the sleepless nights filled with questions that don't have answers. That's where you begin to mourn not just what was taken, but who you were when you still had it. And that mourning, that is holy work, because beneath the grief is something waiting, not just healing, but clarity. You begin to see where you gave too much, where you stayed too long, where you loved from fear instead of wholeness. And that clarity, that slow, soul-burning clarity, is what begins to turn the ashes into fuel. Frankl didn't find meaning in spite of his pain. He found it through the pain. He didn't get over the losses. He carried them, but he refused to carry them blindly. And that's your task now, to grieve without shame, to cry without apology, to honor what died, so that you can finally make room for what's being born. You are not weak because you're still hurting. You are sacred because you're still feeling. That alone sets you apart in a world obsessed with forgetting. At some point after the tears have dried, after the rage has cooled, after the fantasies of revenge have faded into silence, a new feeling begins to stir. Not hope, not peace, not forgiveness. Something wilder, something stronger. Defiance. Not the immature kind that spits in the face of life, but the sacred kind. The kind Viktor Frankl witnessed in the eyes of men who had nothing left but their dignity and still stood tall. He called it the last of the human freedoms, to choose, to say, you may have taken everything, but not me. And here's what most people don't understand about healing. It's not about becoming soft. It's about becoming sovereign, because if you're still waiting for them to understand, to admit, to change, you're still theirs. Frankl understood this in the purest way. He didn't just survive the camps, he resisted them, not with fists but with meaning, with a spirit that said, you will not dictate who I become. He watched others collapse under the weight of hopelessness, not because they were weak, but because they had nothing left to live for. So he made it his mission to find that reason, and to help others find theirs, not someday, but now, in the middle of the pain, in the heart of the suffering. He wrote, those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. So, let me ask you something. What's your why now if it was them? If it was the relationship, the fantasy, the future you imagined, you may feel like you have nothing left. But that's not true. You still have you, and not just the you who was betrayed, but the you who survived it. That part of you deserves your loyalty now, the part that didn't give up, that kept breathing, that sat in the ashes and said, this won't be the end of my story. That's your defiant spirit, and it doesn't need anyone's permission to rise. It doesn't wait for closure. It doesn't need them to validate your pain. It stands quietly, clearly, completely, and it says, I am not broken. I am being rebuilt, but not in their image, in yours. From now on, you're not looking back to make sense of the past, you're looking inward, to build a self so rooted, so clear, so sovereign, that no one ever gets to define your worth again. After betrayal, there's a temptation, a seductive one, to shut down, to harden, to build walls so high no one can ever hurt you again. And at first it feels like strength. You stop caring, you stop trusting, you tell yourself, never again. You trade vulnerability for control, empathy for distance, love for safety, and you start wearing that mask like armor. But here's the truth. That's not healing. That's survival. It's a trauma response dressed up as transformation. And it works, well, for a while, until you realize you're not just safe from pain. You're safe from joy too, from intimacy, from depth, from life. Because when you numb the sorrow, you also numb the wonder. Viktor Frankl saw this in the camps. The men who hardened themselves completely, who shut off all emotion in the name of survival, didn't come out stronger. They came out hollow. Because when you kill off your ability to feel, you kill off your capacity to live. Frankl never advocated for emotional suppression. He never said, just move on. He said, suffering is part of life. And if life has meaning, then suffering must have meaning too. That doesn't mean romanticizing the pain. It means allowing it to speak, to teach. Because what betrayal reveals, more than anything, is how much of your self-worth was outsourced, how much of your value was entangled in being loved, needed, wanted, and when that's taken away, you meet the part of yourself that was still waiting to be chosen. But here's the opportunity. You don't need armor to protect you anymore when you become the one who chooses you first. That's the difference between survival and sovereignty. Survival says never again. I'll trust no one. Sovereignty says I've learned, and I'll never abandon myself again, even if others do. Because self-abandonment is the real betrayal, and it's the only one you actually have control over. You want to rebuild? Then don't make yourself smaller. Don't become colder, become truer. Become so deeply integrated that no mask is needed, no defense is automatic, no fear gets to dictate your behavior anymore, not because you're untouchable, but because you're finally in touch with the only power that cannot be taken, wholeness. There's a kind of optimism that's easy to sell, the kind that tells you everything happens for a reason, or good things are coming. But when you've been betrayed, really betrayed, those words feel insulting. They don't touch the truth. They bypass it. And if there's one thing your soul can't stand anymore, it's spiritual dishonesty. Viktor Frankl understood this long before it became a cliché. He didn't believe in shallow positivity. He believed in something he called tragic optimism. What does that mean? It means you can face the brutal, raw, unfiltered reality of what's happened and still choose life, still choose love, still choose meaning. Not because everything is okay, but precisely because it's not. Frankl once said, "The world is in a bad state, but everything will become still worse unless each of us does his best." That's not false hope. That's personal responsibility forged in fire. It's choosing to keep your heart open, knowing full well it could be hurt again. It's choosing to trust, not because others have proven themselves, but because you have proven that you can survive betrayal and stay soft. It's choosing to believe in meaning even when life has thrown every reason not to. That is tragic optimism, and it's the opposite of denial. It says, yes, I've seen what people are capable of. Yes, I've felt the sting of promises broken, trust shattered. And no, I won't let it make me cruel, because cynicism is a mask for grief, and bitterness is just love that was never allowed to heal. But you are allowing yourself to feel it all. You are walking through the valley with your eyes wide open. You are saying, even here I will create meaning. Even now I will rise. And that makes you unstoppable. Not because you're invincible, but because you are willing. Willing to keep loving, even with scars. Willing to keep showing up, even with fear. Willing to face the tragedy and still choose to build something beautiful anyway. That's the kind of optimism the world needs. Not a fantasy, but a fierce, grounded hope. The kind born in the dark, but carried like fire in your hands. There comes a moment after the shock, after the grief, after the rage and the silence, and the endless internal dialogue, when something shifts. You stop replaying what they did. You stop rehearsing what you should have said. You stop trying to rewrite a story that already ended, and instead you turn inward, not to escape, but to return. Because the truth is, long before they betrayed you, you had already abandoned parts of yourself. Maybe it was when you quieted your needs to keep the peace. Maybe it was when you overlooked the red flags because you didn't want to seem too much. Maybe it was when you ignored your intuition, the one that whispered, "This isn't love, it's dependency." You didn't just lose them, you lost touch with you, but now you begin the quiet revolution of coming back. Not to who you were before the betrayal, but to someone you've never fully met, the version of you who knows how to protect their peace, who no longer confuses silence with maturity or suffering with strength, who doesn't audition for love anymore, but inhabits it, first and foremost, within themselves. Viktor Frankl taught that we are not products of our conditions, but of our decisions. And this is one of the most important decisions you will ever make: to no longer betray yourself in the name of connection, to stop outsourcing your self-worth, to stop shrinking to be chosen, to stop negotiating your boundaries with people who can't even meet their own. Coming home means reclaiming every piece of you that you gave away out of fear. Your voice, your softness, your knowing, and the incredible thing? You don't need anyone's permission to do it, because this home, this sanctuary, is built from the inside. It is made of clarity, of intention, of presence. No one can give it to you, and no one can take it away. And from this place, you no longer ask, will they love me? You ask, do I love myself enough to never leave me again? That's the real return, that's the real rebuild. Not just a recovery from pain, but a full reunion with the self you were always meant to become. You might not feel it yet, but there will come a day, a quiet, almost imperceptible moment, when the thought of opening your heart again doesn't feel like a threat. It won't be because you've forgotten what happened, or because you've moved on in some artificial way. It'll be because something inside you has shifted. You'll no longer see love as a gamble. You'll see it as a gift, one that you no longer give blindly. After betrayal, most people think the goal is to trust others again. But Viktor Frankl would disagree. He'd say the real goal is learning how to trust yourself again, to trust your instincts, to trust your no, to trust that when something doesn't feel right, you won't silence it this time, because the truth is, you never lacked the ability to love wisely. You just abandoned your wisdom to avoid being alone. But now, you've made it through the loneliness, and what you found there was you yourself no longer hungry for validation, no longer negotiating with red flags, no longer mistaking intensity for intimacy. From that place you can open up again, not because you need someone to complete you, but because you want to share the self you've reclaimed. And when love is rooted in wholeness, not in fear, it doesn't feel like a test, it feels like freedom. Frankl said, happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. The same goes for connection. You don't chase it. You become the version of yourself who attracts it naturally, because you are no longer afraid of being alone. You are no longer afraid of walking away. You are no longer afraid to be misunderstood, because the relationship you have with yourself has become the standard for everything you allow in your life. This is how you rebuild, not by erasing the past, but by refusing to repeat it, by making every scar part of your sacred architecture, by standing in the truth of who you are, and letting that truth filter every choice you make moving forward. You can love again. You will love again. But this time, you won't abandon yourself to do it. And now, we arrive at the close. But this is not just an ending, it's an invitation. Here's the final message, woven directly from the soul of this journey. And hey, if you've been feeling stuck in emotional loops, struggling with inner conflict, or sensing there's a part of you you've never fully understood, you're not alone in that. This guide we've put together dives deep into exactly that. It'll help you understand why certain patterns keep repeating, face the hidden parts of yourself you've been avoiding, begin real emotional healing and self-integration, reconnect with your true, undiluted self, if any of that speaks to something you've been quietly carrying. Check the first pinned comment under this video. It might be exactly what your soul has been needing. No pressure, no rush, just when you're ready. If this video helped you in any way, leave a like and watch the video that's showing up here on the screen. It might help you even more.